Hey, what's up, C-Maniac Nation? C-Man here letting you know that you are getting ready to take a look at a previously recorded piece of content from the end of September, just before my life kind of spiraled out in October. If you didn't get a chance to see the video where I discussed this, my aunt passed at the beginning of October. That led right into a wedding, which led into Comic-Con, which led into Halloween, and emotionally and physically, October just zapped me to the point where I really couldn't do much. And we've scaled back just 1 minute reviews, and there'll be some reactions and long form things that I want to get up eventually before the end of the year. And this is one of those. I had the absolute pleasure of sitting down with line producer of one of my favorite films of the year, Strange Darling, Mr. Dan Lawler, and got to talk to him about producing, what kind of happens in his world on a day-to-day basis, and then what was going on with Strange Darling. And because this was shot right in the heart of its theatrical run, we kept things spoiler free. But Strange Darling is out to rent and stream, so make sure you either give that a rent or a buy. Go find it on your streaming services. Check it out. It is a stellar movie. Very few that will be better than that this year. And I thought, what better way to deliver this content than as a thank you to all of you guys for sticking around, for supporting me. The nice words that I've heard from some people have really helped just kind of everything that's going on with my world. So I figured, why not give you all a big thank you on the day of thanks. So I hope you all are having a wonderful Thanksgiving. Stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy family and friends, and then enjoy a little C-Man and Dan Lawler. So let's not waste any more time. Send it back to a longer-haired C-Man and dive into this interview. Let's take it away, pass C-Man. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the C-Man, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down. Now, if you've been following along recently, you know that one of my favorite movies of the year is Strange Darling. And in posting my stuff on TikTok, I kind of stumbled into somebody involved with the film. I said, you only get one shot, so you got to shoot it. Asked if you want to come in, sit down, talk a little movies with us. It's been a while since I've done an interview, so I got really excited. And he said yes, thank God for me. And in general, I'm really pumped in just talking to him a little bit before we got going. Seems like this should be a fun one. So I don't want to waste any time, man. Why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat? We are getting ready to talk to producer of the film Strange Darling, Mr. Dan Lawler. Dan, how are you doing today?
Good, good, good. What's up, C-Man? Glad to
Oh,
be here.
man. Good. I'm glad we were able to finally make this work. And I really, really appreciate you taking all the time that you're going to take today to kind of sit down and talk, because this is definitely one where I love when I stumble into movies and find creators that I haven't been following previously. And I love adding that to my list of people to kind of watch and follow. And after seeing this movie, this is your name is definitely one I was like, oh, if Dan wants to come in and talk, I definitely want to get into it. So very, very excited to talk to you. Thank you again so much for taking some time. And I know your time is obviously super valuable, so I don't want to waste too much time. So why don't we just get right into it? So I think the thing that's always cool in talking to creators is finding out where you kind of start at. So for you, what was it that drew you to want to be in filmmaking? And where did you kind of get your start, and what led you to, where you're at now?
Sure. Yeah, man. It's been a long and winding road. About 20 years ago, I moved out to LA. And I got in with the Groundlings. I started doing
Right.
improv, and that led to stand-up comedy that I was doing for a while. Writing, I got into commercial acting and voiceover, and I sort of tested out that whole side of the industry. When I was a kid, I was so influenced by the films and TV that I was watching, and I thought, I always knew that I wanted to be a producer. I always knew
Yeah.
that I wanted to make movies, but I had convinced myself that that meant being Adam Sandler. Um, Adam does a lot of
He
stuff,
does.
and I was like, oh, I guess I'll just do all of that. I guess I'll go do stand up and improv and SNL and everything else. Um, and after doing the in front of the camera side, it's a grind. Anybody who's
Yeah.
out there doing it, auditioning and making your own content and just living that artist lifestyle, it's quite a grind. And I had a great time doing it in my 20s and beyond a little bit. But around 2018, I had always sort of worked in production here and there.
Sure.
2018, I found a couple of really good mentors. Fiona Walsh Hines, who's now over at Searchlight, Janelle Canastra, who is working mostly with Scott Free and Apple and Kevin Walsh Company. Marina Stabile, who I've worked with on so many things. These great women in film
Yeah.
gave me a shot on their little movie Clemency that ended
Okay.
up winning Sundance in 2019.
Yeah.
And I just after that, I just stuck to the production office. I said, this is the hardest route. This is the most logistics. If I could do all of this, I can actually finally learn how to make movies on my own. So I did that for a few years, coordinating, doing the union route, and then moving up into production management. Did a couple movies with Scott Free, and then finally got in with Miramax. And I've ended up working on about 15 titles in different capacities with Miramax the
Yeah.
last 5 or so years. And Strange Darling is the most recent one to hit theaters, but there are still actually a couple on the shelf over there.
Nice.
Um, and through that, I found another mentor in Michael Zampino, who went on to be VP of Miramax for a while. And, because of all these great people that I'm following around, that I'm learning from, I'm able to move, relatively quick the last few years. I made a bunch of really great friends on Strange Darling and a bunch of these other movies. And I'm able to, continue those relationships forward. And I think there's a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon. But yeah, man, it's been about 20 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I definitely feel that, like it's amazing, even in like what I do and just in the industry in general, like once you start to kind of meet people and get those doors open, like you can kind of move pretty quick. And that's awesome to kind of see all that come. And obviously, I just think from what I've seen just so far, bigger and better things hopefully are in front of you. What would you say is pre-Strange Darling, like your biggest personal highlight from, your 20 years of getting into film?
That's tough. I mean, Clemency was a big deal for me because it was a new kind of project and it ended up winning Sundance. I mean, only one movie a year can win Sundance. So that was
Yeah,
pretty cool at the time. Working with some big name actors that I really respect has been really cool. David Hyde Pierce was particularly
that's
cool.
awesome.
Kyle Gallner actually is a really, really great dude. He can function like a normal human being, which is my absolute favorite thing out of
That's
actors
awesome.
because there aren't that many.
Yeah.
And not only can Kyle take care of himself and be a normal person, but he's actually really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
that's I love hearing that because I'm a big Kyle Gallner fan. Like being a
yeah,
horror junkie, like he's been around for so long. I mean, he's a modern screen king,
absolutely.
and I love how he can flip flop. You know what I mean? Like he can be the hero lead, but he can be the villain lead, and he wears both hats so well and can transfer
Yeah.
because some actors can't do that, right? Like once you're the hero, once you're the villain, that's just staple to you. And to watch how he can kind of blend around in what he
Yeah.
does is so cool.
And a couple movies where he gets to do both are always my favorite.
Yes, I would agree 100% with you.
And Giovanni Ribisi as well. I mean, a guy that I've been watching on screen just for decades, since before I started my production adventure. I've been watching that guy.
Yeah.
And
Same.
he's another one who's just really cool, who I was able to connect with on a real human level. And we still talk. We're talking about potentially getting together on some other new projects.
That's awesome.
Obviously, as you can imagine, with Strange Darling looking so good,
So good.
that guy. He was already busy. I'm sure he's quite a bit busier now,
I
but
would imagine. What was it like, being a Giovanni Ribisi fan to see him go from in front of the camera to because you usually see, move behind the camera, writing,
yeah,
directing. You don't see a lot of actors move behind the camera physically to be the cinematographer. So what was that like?
yeah. I think roughly one in all of history has
Yeah,
kind of
I
done
think I
that
think
in
it's
a
it.
in a substantial way, and that's our boy Gio. It was really cool, when I met Giovanni on the project, and he was already in that role, and so I saw it on paper before I met the guy, and when I met would have been on the location scout. Or
Okay.
the tech scout, actually, rather, which is pretty close to filming up in Portland. I went up as studio executive for Miramax, just kind of to check in on everything, give a status report, go out on the tech scout, see all the locations, meet a lot of the key crew. JT was playing us some Z Berg tracks on the
It's
scout
awesome.
bus riding around town, not the ones
Love
in the
that.
movie, they weren't written
No,
yet,
yeah.
but he said the idea is this chick is going to do the entire score, and he was he
So
was
cool.
committed to it from that point. So really glad that that was able to happen too. But met Gio and JT on that trip, and they were just so open and welcoming and willing to share what it was that they were doing. And I've met other directors and DPs and things that can be a little bit cagey for some
For sure.
reason. And that was certainly not the case with Giovanni. He was great with sharing information and just with talking about what he wanted to do. He's a really passionate guy. And it was really interesting to see him in that role.
Yeah.
Because, before that, I had only seen him in character. I
Yeah.
don't know that I had seen him even do interviews. So
Right.
I'm looking at him, I'm like, so this is the real guy. This is the real guy. Because you can't tell he's always
Yeah,
100%
absolutely.
right here with you.
Yeah.
But it was really, really cool. And glad that, sometimes they say, not to meet your heroes, but that's one that
But
you're a-okay to meet that guy. He's an impressive dude.
I love hearing that because, like you, I've been watching Geo for years, and coming out of the theater when he did the Q&A in New York, everybody that was there. I mean, JT, Willa, him, they were all so gracious, like out talking to people in the hall. Gio signed a bunch of, things and took pictures. Just seemed like he was awesome. So I always, like you said, you're told don't meet your heroes, but I do love hearing when you hear somebody that you love is awesome. It's always great to hear.
Yeah.
Now you did mention that you were there, from the executive production side for Miramax. So obviously in this movie, you're wearing a couple different producing hats. So for you, producing is one of those things I feel like doesn't get like talked a lot in conversation. So there's a lot of different roles that a producer can have. So for you, what are the different hats that you've worn and how does that change movie to movie for you?
Yeah, I mean it's a big change. I think that most of the conversation around producers is the answering the question, what does a producer do? And it can be so many different things.
Yeah,
So on this, at the end of the day, I was line producer and executive producer with Miramax. Um, we we had a lot of changeover in the crew. We had a
sure.
sort of high turnover rate for a variety of reasons. There were people that started the show that did not make it to the end of the show. And I was not the first line producer on the show. So
Okay,
that's line producer, production coordinator. Those are really hard positions to replace
sure.
when you're up and running because of the amount of logistics that we deal with. So on this one, after I had gone up for the tech scout and met everybody and checked in with the guys and was there for maybe a week or so, I came back down to LA and I was working out of the Miramax office, and we had to send some additional production support up. So we sent Lauren Elizabeth Hood, who is a frequent collaborator of mine since I met her on a Miramax movie in 2020. We sent her up. She ended up taking over as coordinator, and I ended up following a couple of weeks later and taking over as line producer. Um, with Miramax, they're the team that I knew over there. There's been a big changeover this year, and I've
Sure.
met a number of the new folks, but I don't really know them. But
Yeah.
back in that administration, the Bill Block, Michael Zampino, Andrew Golov, years over there, the guys were nothing but fantastic to me.
Sure.
And I can't thank them enough for all of the opportunities and all the great stuff I was able to do, like go and work on this movie. So I was able to get the dual credit on that one. Um, as line producer, I'm in charge of the budget. That's the biggest thing. I have that direct line between the studio and the movie. I was also working as unit production manager, which is sort of the other end of that. That's the crew facing end. So I
Okay.
was UPM as well as line producer, dealing mostly with the budget approvals and workarounds, let's say.
Sure.
And it was pretty heavy lifting on this one. It was a really small budget. I don't know if the official number is out there, but we can say it's very much officially a low budget movie.
Sure.
So it was tight, and we dropped a couple of shooting days early on to regroup. We ended up permanently dropping a couple shooting days for smoke. There were wildfires up in the
Oh,
Mount Hood
wow.
region that we had to shut down production in the middle of a shooting day because the air quality got so
Damn.
bad. So we were down for a
That's
couple of days there.
terrible.
Yeah, it's a lot of challenges, and that's all within that LP UPM
Sure.
sort of world. That's what we deal with all the time.
Yeah.
Right now, since production, a little bit after we wrapped production, I left my position at Miramax and I went and traveled around a bit. I
Okay.
did festival circuit. I went over to Cannes in France. That was fantastic. I went up
Yeah.
to IF in Toronto. And I went down and saw the Strange Darling premiere at Fantastic Fest in Austin, which is a very different
That had to
experience.
be awesome.
That was cool, man. That was cool. They had their boxing match where you have a debate and then you actually slug it out. That was wild.
Oh,
That was
wow.
very much designed for the fans.
Okay.
Not quite as accommodating to the producer types to the
Sure.
industry level there. That one's all about the fans. So
Yeah.
like if you're into horror, if you're into that genre of stuff, that's one to check out for
I
sure.
gotta add that to the list for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, 100-degree heat, but worth it for sure. The other producing hat that I wear is producer, a creative producer. And that's what mostly I've been focusing on since a little bit after the Rap Strange Darling.
Hmm,
I have my own slate of productions, one script I wrote myself, a couple that came in through Lauren Hood and Adam Gaines, another great writer, Jordan Santacana, all these great writers that I'm able to meet and work with. I'm I've been working on fundraising and connecting with the right parties and starting to put cast in place. That's
nice.
what when we say what does a producer do, we're usually referring to that hat.
Right.
It's the creative producer, the individual who takes a movie from paper to the screen.
Good.
It's a long process. It's a tough process. You have to play a lot
Yeah.
of politics, but it's a lot of fun. I think I'm pretty close to connecting the dots and having my first pure creative producer movie
That's
uh,
awesome.
hit the world. I think next year we might see something on that front.
Oh, that's
It's a
exciting.
pretty exciting venture for sure.
That's super exciting. And like you were saying, like, when you're on the production side and you're more involved in the creative and taking it from screen or from paper to screen, do you think wearing the other producer hat, where you're the guy who's dealing with the budgets and all the other, technical things that are going on, not on set, does that help prep you for the type of red tape or things that you have to maneuver as a creative producer?
100%. 100%. When I chose the production office as the path that I wanted to take because I knew it was the hardest one, I was looking for exactly that kind of prep and making it all the way up to, from coordinator to supervisor to line producer, and seeing what it takes, what's required on both ends of things, has prepared me so much for the creative producer route. So not only am I able to build my own budgets and schedules when I'm in pre-production right
Sure.
now to help get things sold, I don't have to outsource that and spend thousands of dollars. I
Sure.
just have to spend a whole lot of time.
Time. Yeah.
But being able to do that is so very helpful. And knowing that those kind of challenges are coming, I think puts me in a great place to be able to helm my own shows.
Dude, that's awesome. I'd love to hear that. And like I said, definitely excited for you and pulling for whatever you do next, as you move more into the creative end. So Strange Darling, let's dive into this a bit more. So obviously, like you said, you're wearing a couple different hats. You're around set, you're doing things at the office. You and JT, even during the Q&A, have mentioned that this was a tough production. And obviously, with a small budget, shooting on 35 millimeter film, which I think, as JT and Geo kind of said, create their own kind of problems and difficulties you got to solve for because you got to be a little bit more urgent. You don't have 25 takes to get something done.
Right.
So, from your end and seeing all that, what would you say were one or two of the biggest hurdles that you kind of came across as you were going through filming?
Well, I think that early on, the show um, the show found itself in a tough position um, for a number of reasons, and it was actually pretty complicated and interesting to see it take that sort of route. Being JT's only his second feature, being Giovanni's first feature as a DP, and being that it was in quite a low budget range, I think that those things, even just on paper,
Sure.
give gave the idea that there was some kind of rookie level to this production. And I think that the reality was that JT knew exactly what it was that he wanted to shoot, what he wanted to
Yeah.
get, and it was on the page. And they had created a really great document, sort of an extended shot list that they were able to follow through the show. I think they prepped it really well. I think that Giovanni actually had a lot of experience, even though it's his first feature as DP.
Sure.
He's been doing this for 15 years. We shot on his cameras. He owns this gear.
That's awesome.
We transported all the way up to Oregon, and
Oh, that's so cool.
so there was no getting to know the process. Obviously, that guy's a
Sure.
30+ year film vet, who had been using these cameras for well over a decade. But I think that there was an idea that it might be, and the reality is that when we shoot on location, especially with low budget film, there are incentives to using local crews. So we always try to hire as many locals as we possibly can, both for tax incentive purposes and
Sure.
just because we want to bolster local film communities. I mean,
Absolutely.
film equals jobs, at least until AI takes over everything, which I don't think. But
Hope
for
I'm
now,
not here for that.
yeah, right. Film does really equal jobs, and it's great to be able to bring jobs. And the reason that we get
Sure.
film tax incentives is because we hire locally and we rent and buy locally, and all, as much money as is possible is spent there on location.
Sure.
Uh, that being said, when you're shooting in a place that isn't Hollywood or New York City, and you're on a lower budget sort of movie, you don't just have your pick of anybody in the world to work all the crew positions. So we
Sure.
had a lot of very qualified people in the crew. A number of them were locals. We flew in as many people as we had to from LA or wherever else, and we hired some other locals that, it was a bit of a step up to a 6 week shoot for a feature,
Sure.
and some of those folks didn't work out, like I mentioned earlier, for a variety of reasons, had a little
Sure.
turnover. And I think that when that sort of thing happens early, and there's an idea that, maybe this isn't the most experienced crew,
Sure.
it's into the heads of the people who are not there on site, red
Absolutely.
flags start to go up, and they start to sweat a little bit. And then what JT says, um, he recommends any young filmmaker, or really any filmmaker, start with your car chase first. Start with the exciting stuff. Send that
Sure.
first day of footage in and let them say, "Oh, this is going to be good. This is
What
the kind of quality we expect."
That's what I was about to follow up with. It was like, what was it like when the first dailies came in, and how quick were they like, oh yeah, that rookie worries? Nah, that's not a thing.
So, just because of how schedules lay out, we did not start with the car chase. We did not start with anything thrilling. We started with what ends up being a audience favorite scene: Ed Begley Jr. and Barbara Hershey
Oh man, it's
having
so
breakfast.
good. So it's one of the best. We're not going to spoil things during this interview, but
Yeah.
this is one of the best, most unique breakfast scenes I've ever seen in my life, and that's one of the other things I love about this movie is some of the dark humor that it kind of layers into to break some of the tension. And that scene in particular was like a massive hit.
Yeah, and it doesn't open the movie because that's not the tone of the movie. That's the
Yeah.
tone of the scene.
Yep.
And so when we shot that first and we just have a couple of old biker hippies having one hell of a breakfast, the question was, I thought this was a thriller.
Yeah.
What exactly are we doing here? And we always shoot movies out of order. I
Yeah,
don't know of any
absolutely.
movie that is shot in order, let alone this one that is never going to be in order, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So with all of those kind of pressures mounting and that like prove it moment of the first day, and it comes in, with a pound of butter and whatever else, just wasn't exactly, it didn't cure those issues. So
Sure.
we had to work through that. We had to work a bit more. We still had some growing pains. I got sent up to Portland. I ended up having to drive up. I had
Yeah.
my 90-pound Rottweiler Husky with me, and so that's a 2-day drive
Yeah.
from LA. He's too big to fly.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
fair. I've
but
done
he,
that drive. It's a good drive.
yeah, it is. It's gorgeous. Again, caught some wildfires on the way down.
Yeah.
Pretty spooky stuff there, to be honest.
Yeah. I believe
But
that.
everybody, pretty much the whole crew got to meet him. My dog Huck got to play with Willa Fitzgerald's dog a number of
That's
They had
awesome.
a great little barky relationship.
Oh,
So it was a lot of fun. It was worth it and everything else. But eventually we got through it, and we started delivering those hot dishes that you see later on in the shoot,
yeah.
especially that car chase. That
Yeah.
car chase.
Like, what was it like to see the flip from that side, right? Where it's like, what are we doing to holy shit, what is this gonna be?
Yeah. By that time I was already up in Portland, so I wasn't down on
Right
site to
there.
see those reactions in the screening room there. But what I can say for sure is the movie didn't get shut down, so they
Yeah.
uh, they left it there. I know also that I don't know exactly when, but sometime around when JT delivered his first cut of the movie, they gave him final cut on the
That's
picture,
that says
which
a
is
lot in
not.
and of itself.
Yeah, I mean that's not the average deal,
Yeah.
especially for a second time
Second time
filmmaker.
filmmaker.
But
Yeah.
they saw what he was doing. Like I said, he's a great businessman and was able to, he gave them everything that they had asked for. As far as I know, when they wanted to see it cut in order and they wanted to see all these different things, he's great at working with people. And I think that they saw that side of him as well as that technically sound movie it delivered in a very
Sure.
clear image that
Yeah.
matched all the originals. It matched the script, it matched the storyboards, and they said, "Okay, man, this is yours." Uh, you know,
That's That's awesome to hear because like it's one of those where I think, especially when you start getting into bigger budget films and things like that, where the studio has a lot of hands on and they get into the meddling and like especially on an indie film, it's nice to know that JT's vision was what was out because he had final say on things. That's wonderful to hear, and it's something that I wish, especially on lower budget films where you're taking a shot on somebody. The creatives are what make indie so strong, and I think we're personally for me in an era of indie film where like there's just so much magic out there, and to hear like you have that kind of creative control has to be extremely encouraging, I would imagine.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I think in the face of all of this AI garbage, I think that it's really lighting fires under people to not only make original stories, but to demand and support original stories. You know, the fan base for this movie has just gone rabid, and it was
Yeah.
great to see right off the bat. I mean, the initial reactions are just so overwhelmingly positive, sitting at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Maybe it's down to 95%, I think, now after being open for 3 weeks.
I,
Just crazy scores. The Twitter just blows up. I remember when we had that pre-screening. I was out in LA when you guys were in New York,
yeah,
and Twitter just set on fire that night, and it
man.
really hasn't stopped for weeks.
No, and it is. It's one of those things where like it's a movie that's so unique and throws you into it in a way where you're at the edge of your seat 30 seconds into the film and you are just like you were saying, there's the structure of the film creates a lot of what's going to come next. How did we get to this place? And the curveballs and things that JT has hidden to kind of hit you with left hooks, whether it's a big suspenseful thrilling scene or a piece of dialogue that really gets into interesting subject matter and into these characters. Like it's one of those movies that's got a little bit of everything, and everything that's executed in the movie is flawless. Like to anybody that's not giving this thing a, you know, pro tomatoes score is wild because you just watch it, whether you love it all the way through or not. There's
Yeah,
there's just nothing that doesn't work in the movie.
yeah,
So going from the tough
yeah.
stuff for
Yeah.
you, what was the best day during filming?
Best day. I mean, it was so cool to see the car chase. We used a Ukraine with a team from Filmotechnic, and they came out. I think they were driving a Porsche SUV. It was their follow car, which was the actual crane car, which is pretty dope. And seeing that thing work was really exciting. I was in the follow van with stunt coordinator and some other folks, so I could see it actually happening, and I was looking at monitors. And Kyle Gallner's stunt double on the movie was so good.
That's
He's
awesome.
so good. Kyle asked him on set. He's like, "Man, would you like follow me around? Would you be my guy?" And he said, "Absolutely, yes,
That's
indeed."
so cool.
But being able to watch the stunts happen and how close the car was getting to the camera, and that was a really really exciting day. Was it the most fulfilling day on set? Probably not. It was fun to watch, but I think the really towards the end of production. Um, when we got the last shot of the movie is the last shot that we got.
Okay.
And doing that day, riding around in the truck for that, we could just feel that we got the movie,
Yeah.
that we were able to do it. There are pieces that weren't able to be shot that were in the script that did actually get permanently cut. And JT would love to add them back in.
Sure.
Um, but we could tell that we got what we needed to. We got some really good stuff. We could tell that the performances really, we could just feel it all come together. There was
Yeah.
a little bit of rain that we had to kind of work around, but it's that kind of like light, fresh rain. Man, maybe
Yeah.
I'm just reminiscing because it's been so hot in Hollywood for September. My God.
Yeah.
But just that little bit of cool rain that, certainly adds a little bit of danger on the stunt front. We had to, when we flipped the car, we had to watch out for that as well. And that was a cool
Yeah.
moment. That was pretty fun flipping that car. Being on the ground with Giovanni and the camera team
That's
and
awesome.
working around that. I got a little bit of BTS footage. That's pretty cool there.
That's sick.
Um, I had worked with a number of different kind of cars and stunts and things over the year, but that was my first car flip. So that was
That's awesome. It's a
super,
good one too.
super memorable day. Yeah.
Yeah. That's dope. Speaking of Willa and that last scene, not spoiling anything, but one of the things I love about that is it's a scene that seems to go on much longer than it's necessary. But it's also one of those scenes where Willa is turning in an unreal performance. Like what she is doing in that moment, it's justified that it takes as long as it does to get to the end of that scene. So getting to be, like you said, like on set, what is it like watching Willa Fitzgerald do her thing? Because she's another person, we're talking about Kyle Gallner earlier as kind of a modern day Scream king. She's a modern day Scream queen, and I love that they've both touched the Scream franchise in different ways. But she is someone like, as soon as I saw her name on the poster, I was like, I don't need to know the synopsis. I don't need to know a trailer, this poster, and she's in here and Gallner's in here. I'm in. So for you, what's it like to watch her create that kind of magic on set?
It was really pretty great, especially that last scene. Um, we were at the end of the shoot, and always when you're shooting on film, there's the idea of use only what you need to. And for
Yeah.
those, we were just rolling out the cameras. We just said,
Yeah.
just let it go.
Go. That's awesome.
And I mean that last shot, I mean, as you know, it's just so good. And it's
Yeah.
funny, I would say that between 2 and 5% of people say, my God, that shot is too long. And everybody else says that is one of the best pieces of acting I've ever seen in my life. And they
Yeah.
do not comment on the length of the scene.
No, it's one of those like, because I didn't even feel the length the first time, but when I went back the second and third times, like it is a long shot, but like you said, it's like you're watching pure magic and like just top end acting. And when you're getting stuff like that from a performer, let them take it where they want to go, and it allows in post to do some cool things visually while that's going on that just line up so wonderfully.
Yeah.
um
And in my second or third viewing of the movie, there in that last sequence, and again, we don't want to give any spoilers because not enough people have seen this movie
yeah.
yet. So I guess we got to
can't
take care of all the holdouts waiting to watch it on your couch.
can't wait for that streaming pop
It's gonna
because
happen.
it's gonna be
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, man, it's a modern cult classic. I feel the same about this movie as I did about Idiocracy when it came out. I was one of the few people that went to the theater and saw Idiocracy.
That's
It was
awesome.
here in Hollywood, and it wasn't even released under its real name. It was called Untitled Mike Judge Comedy or some garbage, and we had to find it and watch it. And I just said, "Where is everybody else?"
Yeah.
And now, it certainly gets its due because the world has, gone that way. But I think that we're gonna have a huge celebration on this movie again
Yeah.
when it's able to hit everybody's living room. That
Yep.
being said, it is still in theaters. Go and see it.
Yeah. If you can,
Tell,
you
tell
have
the
to.
theater to crank the volume.
Yep.
Uh, it is absolutely best seen with a big audience for
Oh,
sure.
absolutely. And just considering that shot on 35 millimeter, like you got to go to the theater to see that correctly. And it's the best way to experience this movie because the color saturation that Geo is working with in some of these, it's so good. Like it's just
Yeah.
such a pretty movie, even though
Yeah.
not a, it's not pretty always on what's going on screen. Um,
But yeah,
so
they sort of their mission statement for the movie was blood on the flower bed. It is almost an exclusively daytime thriller, and it
yeah,
is bright, and everything is so gorgeously colored. It's so rich. You really see Mount Hood. You really see the color palette the director is putting out there with all those primary colors, the reds and the blues, just in your face.
yeah,
And I think they really delivered on that blood on the flower bed thing.
I would
One
say yes.
yeah. One thing about film you mentioned earlier, and it is true, there are different and sometimes more logistics shooting on film stock that as opposed to digital.
Sure.
Being on the budget side of things, it did not really end up being more expensive because of that. And
That's
that
awesome.
is the general case is you don't need to budget more money for film. You just need to budget different money.
Yeah,
All of those hard drives that you have to carry for throughout production and you have to ship all over
that's
and
true.
spend that time clearing them and verify, you still have to do all the footage verifications and keep
Sure.
backups and things, but you really drop a lot of those other costs. And one thing that normally isn't factored into budgets, but the archival for film, they say over the course of 10 years, it's cheaper to keep film than it is to keep digital because you have to have so many
I believe that.
redundancies. You have
Yeah.
to upgrade to new technology and blah, blah, blah. Film just sits in a cool room.
Yeah.
So it's not actually more expensive. You just have to know what you're doing. You have to hire people that know how to work with film. You
Yeah.
have to transport it very, very, very safely, but you have to do that with your digital copies anyway.
It's true.
So I don't really see, especially after going through this full feature with these guys, I don't see film as a hindrance anymore. I really see it
Hear
more
that.
as a selling point than a hindrance. And I'm hoping to shoot everything that I can on film from now on. I know
That's
that,
awesome.
Giovanni is a full celluloid convert.
Yep.
Uh, JT
JT
had
too.
he shoots exclusively on film. I'm born and raised in Rochester, New York. That's the home of Kodak. You know,
Yeah.
growing up, every single family had people working at Kodak, and there's still a lot of folks back home that do. And I couldn't be more excited, more proud to be repping that product in 2024.
Yeah, that it's one of those things where like if I see 35 millimeter, I get so excited right away. And it's like we've got specific spots, like your Nolans and your Denny's, like we're gonna get that from those guys. But it's when you get these smaller movies where like a lot of things are digital now just because of the ease of it. I get so excited when I'm like, oh, somebody's doing it on film. Like that's the way movies should be made, in my opinion, personally.
I agree. I agree. And that when they're talking about it, the work on set, they keep coming back to JT and Giovanni. They keep coming back to the focus that it brings
Yeah.
because there is no such thing as burning your digital assets. You just roll all day,
Yep.
and it ends up with more work for the editor, more takes that are not worth it.
Yep.
A lot of rehearsals being shot, and when it's on film, everyone really does, and they always have. They treat it like the resource, the expendable resource that it is. And I think it really does add a level of attention and focus
Absolutely.
on set at all times.
Well, and I think the other thing that comes through on camera is you can feel that urgency through the whole movie. And something like a thriller, that type of urgency, when you're feeling it in the camera movements, in the performances, it adds to what's going on from the thriller standpoint, where it's
Yeah,
like everybody is bringing their A game at all times, and that reverberates through the film the whole time.
yeah, yeah. I think that's right.
Okay, so we've talked about Geo, we've talked about Willa. What's it like working with Kyle? I know you guys were FOMOing a little bit about not being in New York, and you've
We were.
mentioned to me that he's an awesome guy, which I love hearing as a fan. So what's it like watching him do his thing? Because like we were saying earlier, he's a guy who can wear two different hats in the world of horror and suspense, right? He can be that hero lead, he can be that villain lead, and my favorite Gallner movies are the ones where he can kind of move between the two. So getting to watch him, what's that like?
It's really great. It's really great. I mean, Kyle is a guy that I've stayed in touch with quite a bit from the show, and we were both bummed to not be in New York for that screening. And he's been working on a new movie, so boo-hoo for him.
Yep.
But he's a really great dude. He's a normal guy who is self-sufficient, which I love in an actor. It's pretty rare. But in addition to that, he's a really, really great performer. He shows up as a professional and he just nails it every day. And like you said, I mean, he's one of those rare guys that can truly go back and forth. And
Yeah.
he is not typecast in his career, and he won't
Nope.
be because he can do a whole lot. And
Yeah.
our movie is one that we get to see a couple sides of him.
Yeah.
Same thing for Smile and a
Yep.
lot of his other really great roles. Super. I feel a lot of gratitude for being able to work with the team on this movie and
That's
being
awesome.
to stay in touch with great people like that. I would love to work with Kyle Gallner again.
That's I can completely believe that just in like watching him on film. So getting to hear that behind the scenes stuff is wonderful. Now, obviously, we've talked a bunch about JT, but for people who are not familiar with JT Molnar, like you said, this is a second feature. What, as a producer and as a co-creative with him working on this movie, can you tell people about JT Molnar on why he is somebody you have to keep your eye on?
He's a consummate professional. I mean, he's amazing in conversations with people. He's amazing on set, and he's super diligent in his prep work. He's one of the most prepared directors that I've seen in arriving ready to shoot. Everyone has the idea. If you're at the level where someone's going to give you money to shoot a feature film, you're going to show up and know what you want to shoot. But as far as the communication and sitting down and spending the time in advance, we got into pre-production, and he already had a ton of work done.
That's
Um,
awesome.
Not to mention the guy is so sociable. He's so kind.
Yeah.
He's such a great listener. He's such like an engaged listener. He's
Yeah.
just like in your eyeballs, and he's a really great dude to talk to. He's really passionate about what he loves and about what he would, go to the edge of the earth to avoid. And I appreciate that. There's a clear honesty that comes from JT. He is not anyone's version of a traditional Hollywood guy that's going to
Sure.
say one thing to your face and turn around and say something else somewhere else. He's really thankful. He's really great at giving other people credit. Even right now, I mean, his movie is
Yeah.
absolutely blowing up. It's
Yeah.
considered one of the best movies of the year, certainly
Absolutely.
maybe the best thriller. and he's still just humble and making sure to pass that around to everybody else. I know that he was working on an adaptation for a Stephen King screenplay, and that'll be out, that'll be coming up pretty soon.
That's
And
exciting.
he is, yeah, The Long Walk he adapted.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Big Stephen King fan personally.
Oh yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
usually Mike Flanagan that I'm looking at for adapting King things. So
Right.
that's awesome to know that JT's doing something like that. That
Yeah.
as a fan now of JT Molnar makes me very excited.
Yeah, and he's got a couple more in the barrel, as it were, for his next directing as well. I hope to get a call to get out there and line produce for him again, or
Yeah.
however I can help. He's a great dude. Can't say enough about that guy.
That's awesome to hear. And obviously the talent speaks for itself when you watch this movie. Like if you don't think JT Molnar is a phenomenal director after watching Strange Darling, I don't want to talk to you personally.
Yeah. And that's
Oh,
kind of the thing. Like every once in a while you come across a negative review, and everyone that I've seen, all six, are it's very clear that either they're trying to be contrarian and they're
yep.
trying to be the one that's saying that they hate it, or sorry, they just didn't get it. Like
Which
at
I
all.
feel sorry for people like that because
Yeah.
everything, like the thing I love the most about film is like there's magic in what's going on. And sometimes you can make a movie that is just a pure magic trick in and of itself. And that's 100% what Strange Darling is. Like it is just you walk out, you just go, that was a magic trick. I don't know how that happened. I didn't see that coming, but man, I'm so glad I got to experience that.
That's why it's so important to avoid those spoilers. I mean, on
Yeah.
our end, but also on the viewer end. Like, don't look
Yeah.
it up. If you see something that suggests, I saw this, I don't know if it was Rolling Stone. I think the Rolling Stone article for Strange Darling, really good read. And in the last like two paragraphs, they just loaded up with spoilers, unannounced spoilers,
Hate
all
that.
right there at the very end. It was such like a heartbreak. I was like, I can't share this.
That's killer.
Just get away from it. It's so surprising. It's so well
Yeah.
done.
It,
Just, just
it
see
is.
it.
It's one of those movies where I think going in blind is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
So I know we only got a little bit left, so I don't want to waste any time. But one other thing coming off of, like you said, you got to see the movie several different times. The first time you watched it, what was the thing that just took you by surprise, like kind of caught you off guard? And then watching it with an audience, what was the thing that, people seem to respond to the most, obviously without spoiling it?
Yeah, sure. So the first full cut that I saw was at a test screening here in Los Angeles.
Uh,
And there were a couple of things that were different from the final version. But what was surprising were all of the laughs from the audience.
Yeah, I
There's a
felt that in New
lot of
York.
laugh out loud moments.
There are.
And there is one that had to be cut because of a legal clearance issue. And I think I can tell you about this without spoiling anything. There's the cards, the chapter
Yep.
titles cards.
Yep.
One of them had I'll just tell you what it was. I mean, it used to say, I can say this because it's fair use to talk about
Yeah.
it. Card used to just say Mr. Snuffleupagus.
Okay.
You know which card it is. It
Yep.
changes
Yep.
something similar, Mr. Snuffy or whatever.
Yep.
But Mr. Snuffleupagus got a laugh out loud response from the audience. And I thought it was so funny because there's no context at that point for what it
Yeah.
is that we're talking about.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
they couldn't clear that with Sesame Street. So they
Man,
had to go with a different version. And that's one
that's fair.
bummer that had to be cut. It's nobody's creative choice. That's just a legal issue. There was no way that Sesame Street is going to officially approve anything for Strange
That's
Darling.
fair. I will say this: it did create the surprise when it gets utilized in sequence because,
Yeah.
like, it is a different title on the card. So when it does come up, you're like, "Oh, that's what's happened." Like, again, that's one of the things I love about this movie is like because of how JT structures it. Sometimes you know things, but you don't know how they happened, and you're just constantly going like, "How did? Well, how did we get there?" And that's one of the things I think is just magical about the film in and of itself.
Yeah. I also
Um,
love people getting on vocally in the theater, getting on
oh
the side
yeah,
of one character or another at any given point, and
yeah,
just saying things out loud that you can, and then like half an hour later, you hear that same person go, "Oh shit."
yep. And again, that's one of the things where it's like getting to experience a movie like this in theaters it is so beneficial to what you're doing. Like the all the things that you've been saying were present in the screening in New York, and obviously you had people who were friends of, Willa and Geo and JT were there, so it was maybe even a little bit more vocal. And it creates like an element of fun, especially in a movie that puts you so on edge so often. Like when you get those breaks or those moments where like you can say something or you can laugh out loud, like you kind of live for those, and it adds to the ambiance of the film in
It,
whole.
it feels like, being with the audience all pent up,
Yeah.
those moments are almost just like squeezed out of you.
Yep.
You
Oh
can't
yeah.
help but
You just
be
gotta
excited to
release.
have a second of joy and relief in them.
Yeah.
Really fun, really fun the second and third time to watch for sure.
Absolutely. And I feel that's the other thing I think that's really cool with this movie is the rewatchability factor is fantastic because, like you said, you only get to experience it once for the first time. But when you go back, the things you can pick up on because you know the whole story and how things are structured, like I think it really adds a lot more than anything else to the performances. Like what you're seeing Willa and Kyle do, you can appreciate it so much more when you know the full picture, and that makes going back and rewatching it over and over great. Like I've seen it 3 times so far, and every time I walk away with something I didn't have coming out of it the time before.
The subtleties, man, they
Yeah,
really come
they're
out because that
tremendous.
first viewing is an emotional experience. You
Yeah,
go through it, you can't not.
you really
And
do.
going back and rewatching it, if some of those reactions weren't so subtle, maybe something would have been given away, but they are
Yep.
so subtle. And when you go and watch the second time, they're subtle, but they're there.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can
and
really
it's
see the full characters on display.
the other thing that's really cool, and I give credit to JT on the script side, is one of the things that he's kind of playing close to the chest. I was starting to pick up on, and as soon as I started to pick up on it, it was dropped in the movie. So like it was the timing for where you find that moment out is so perfect
Yeah,
because you really, as an audience member, can't get there until you're there. And that's
right.
one of the other things that I think is really cool about the film. All right. I know you're a busy man, Dan. Last couple minutes, just some fun little softball questions. Talking beforehand, you are a film fan. You like to watch movies yourself. So, in no particular order, 5 of your all-time favorite films, just so
Oh
the
man,
audience kind of gets an idea of who you are as a film
sure.
viewer.
Sure. Well, I'll mention I mentioned Idiocracy. I'll keep that on the list. That's way up
Cool.
high
It's
for
a
me. It
great
always
movie.
has been. I wonder if we'll get a sequel. I wonder if we should. It's
It's fair.
man, it's just so good. It's just so
Yeah,
good. I can't get enough. Fight Club has always been really high up
love
for
that.
me. Well, I was end of high school, I think, for that one. So sort of formative. Really got me into David Fincher. I love everything
Yeah,
Fincher. I really wish that we could get more Mindhunter.
same.
That would be really, really great.
Sure would.
But you know, um, let's see. I mean, Monty Python and the Holy Grail is probably the
Love that.
most formative comedy for me of all
Okay.
time. That one was, before my made before my time, but that and everything Mel Brooks are what I grew up on.
Yeah.
That led me to discover SNL in high school and find a new wave of comedy there. And
Awesome.
everything that I make, I said in Strange Darling, I love all of those comedic moments, how they hit the audience. I'm
Absolutely.
really a comedy guy at heart.
Yeah.
That my one screenplay that's done is a very, very dark comedy, but it is a
Love a dark
comedy.
comedy.
So, that's really my bread and butter. That's where I like to live.
Love
So
that.
and it comes from those pure comedy roots.
Love that. Um, cool. So obviously, getting out there, not named Strange Darling. What has been your favorite movie from this year so far?
I admittedly I've not seen enough of the releases this year. I still haven't
Sure.
seen the new Alien,
It's a fun
which
one.
the trailer has I don't know what your language use is like on the channel here, but there's a lot of throat fucking in
Yeah.
the trailer. Oh my
It's a
God.
lot.
So the wife won't come out for that one, but I do
It's
want to check
fair.
it out. It's really good
It
things. Uh,
it's a really cool flick. Like where it positions itself in the timeline between Alien and Aliens and how Fetty kind of is able to tie in the entire franchise into some of the storytelling was really, really cool.
yeah. Yeah. So I'm excited for that, but I haven't seen it yet. I saw Deadpool. I thought it's definitely what Marvel needs right now is
Yeah, I
someone
would
to take
agree.
jump on its own head.
Yeah.
It was really funny. I love the action. I really love the cameos in it too. I think that I don't need a $350 million thriller that pays every actor that they can think of $20 million
Yep.
a piece. I love the characters that they chose, and it felt like a really big version of a Deadpool movie, and that's
Yep.
all I was for there. So I was happy with that.
That was the thing I loved the most about it was like there were all these theories, and I was theorizing myself and how this could be playing into Secret Wars and some of the bigger things. And I walked out and I was like, it was just a Deadpool movie. And that made me so happy. And like it was, I think it's the funniest, it's the bloodiest. And everybody that's on screen, you can tell is just having a really good time. Like you said, the cameos in it. It's nice to see a movie use cameos for narrative purposes and not just like,
Yeah,
oh, look at who this person is. Like everyone that
right.
shows up has something to do and it means something to the movie. So
Yeah.
I'm totally with you there. That is for sure one of my favorite movies of the year.
Yeah. And what I just saw this week, I saw Rebel Ridge, which just came out
Dude, I
on
just watched that last night. It is
it's
so
really good.
good.
What I would it's I'm not as much the really slow burn thriller
Sure.
guy. I'm more of a Strange Darling paced guy. Give it
Yeah.
to me hard and fast.
Yep.
And Rebel Ridge was a real slow burn. That actor was fantastic. I love the director too. He does really great work. I love Green Room. Um,
Yeah, it's a
I
great
thought,
movie.
I wanted to put on a couple scenes of it just last night for my wife. I wanted to show her this actor. I
Yeah.
want to show her a little bit. And so I skipped through a little bit the very top, so we didn't have to go through the those traumatic moments of
Yep.
yet again white cops and
Yep.
black civilians. Um, so we skipped ahead, watched a piece, skipped ahead, watched a piece. We ended up watching like the 90-minute version of the movie.
Okay.
I will say that that one is real good. I'm a fast paced
That
guy,
it's funny because
so
I do like a slow burn. So
yeah,
like it pulled me in really quick, and then I was kind of here to watch how it unfolded, and
yeah,
then I had to like get up for a second, so I paused it, and it was like that was the first time I'd seen the runtime, and it was 2 hours, and I
yeah,
think a 90-minute cut of that movie is probably a lot better than the 2 hour cut. But like you were saying, being able to jump around, some of the sequences in there, like the amount of just like even short oneers. Like there's so many stacked oneers throughout, and the way it just creates like an energy that pulls you in. There's some cool things in that one for sure.
yeah, yeah. And like I said, I haven't watched a lot of. I'm usually something like a year behind.
Yeah,
As far as I know, there's been a lot of stuff released this year that maybe I should talk about, but I can't because I haven't seen it.
no,
But
that's fair.
I did see The Beekeeper, which was another Miramax movie. And that was a pretty fun one
It
to work
is.
on. That was one of our bigger budget movies.
Yeah.
And I
What
thought it
did
came
you
out really good.
have? What did you have to do on that one? Because I
I
did see
was in
that on the
house.
IMDb page.
Yeah, I was in house at Miramax for that one. I didn't make it out to London where we shot. I hoped to because I had worked with Emmy Raver Lampman on a previous movie here in
Hmm.
LA, and I really was looking forward to getting out to set and seeing her there. I couldn't make it because of other
Sure,
studio responsibilities, but I was in touch with that team, and we do a lot of our work during prep and making, it's all paperwork and logistics and
sure,
monitoring and making sure, safety front, insurance front working in concert with Maeve Geismar at Miramax on that stuff. And it was a good team, and I thought that it came out really good. And
yeah.
there's a little bonus in that one for me. I got my high school history teacher a cameo in the movie.
No
There's
shit.
he's one of the guys up on the digital wall who's getting his identity stolen. He's
That's
like Oakland,
hysterical.
California, in the top corner. I
Oh, that's
got
so fun.
Uncle Chuck Partridge. I got him a little cameo in the
That's
movie.
super cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, I think we're just about out of time. Like you said, you're a busy man. Lots of things you'd like to do, but you got things to do. I really appreciate you taking some time out to chit chat, with me today. This was awesome. Like I said to you beforehand, like I just love talking to people about film. But if I can talk to people who are in film about film, like that's even more fun for me. So that this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to see what you do next, and I would imagine you'll be hearing from me as you kind of move forward because I'm pumped for what you
Man.
got coming.
Hey,
You
I'll
know,
always take the C-man's calls. You know what I'm saying? I'm back.
I'm here
Thank you for breaking
for
me out
that.
today. I've been in budgeting world on a new low budget movie. That's also going to be good.
Yeah.
But it's really fun to sit down and chat. I love your content. I love how
Thank you.
excited you were when Strange Darling came out. So super glad to sit down and chat with you today.
I'm glad you dropped that comment. Don't tell those secrets. And if you watch the movie, don't tell those secrets because that's what makes it so much fun.
Absolutely.
Before we get out, let people know where you're at, where they can see your content, things you got coming up, anything you want to do, while I'll give you the last couple minutes.
Sure, yeah. I mean, you can I'm on the social stuff at the Dan Lawler. I still call it Twitter, sorry. I'm over there, Instagram, wherever else. Most of my work happens behind the camera in the digital world, and I'll let you know when it's peeking its head out. I'm hoping to work with Giovanni and JT, Steve Schneider, Michael Zampino, all these guys again. So a lot of similar names are going to be seen with us coming up. I don't have anything that I can tease very specifically
Sure.
today with a release date, but plenty on the way.
Very, very excited for you, my friend. Thank you again for your time. Everybody, that's it. We thank you to Dan Lawler for coming on to the Cinema Sit Down to have a little conversation. Hope you all enjoyed it as much as hopefully both of us did. I feel like Dan had a good time with us.
I had a good time.
But
I had a good
good.
time.
That's what we like to hear. It's all we want. Just a nice open forum to talk about film. And
Always
he's
good to
got
talk to the good guys, man. I mean, this
yeah,
is repping the
absolutely.
Autobots here today. You got plenty of good
Oh
guys behind
yeah.
you. I
Oh
need one of
yeah.
them.
Well, appreciate that. You certainly are one of the good guys. Very excited to see what's coming up next for you. That's it. So now we're gonna throw it over to you. Want to know what you're thinking? Things that we talked about, things you could be excited about. If you haven't seen Strange Darling, what tickled your fancy here? Let us know anything you got, good, bad, indifferent, down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you guys down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with C-Man anytime we're talking movies, TV, trailer, reactions, you know what to do. Jump over there, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell for those alerts. And until next time, for the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down. I've been the C-Man. That's been Dan Lawler. We're signing off. Peace. Hey, what's up, C-Maniac Nation? Winter Ken here, where we grow out our roots and our beard, letting you know that you can see some new C-Man videos right up here and right down here. And if you want all those videos and show that man a little love and support, come join C-Maniac Nation right over there, and the C-Man will catch you on the next one.